the party, which I thought would be a good way to get back into making films, because it was only 12 days.
Nice.
Ideal.
And then Joe Wright asked me to do this, and I succumbed to his charm, actually.
Well, we'll get into that in a little while, because it's an interest, because you've been asked to play the role a few times,
Yeah.
but you've turned it down. But as we say, we'll get into that shortly.
Yeah, we will. Well, lots to talk about with our guest tonight, and we are starting with a second.
There we are. We'll get some plans.
Anyway, let's talk about your new film. Yes, Darkest Hour. So it's all about Churchill's first 4 weeks in office when the threat of German invasion was looming. And we touched on that, Kristin, that you've been offered this role many, many times but have turned it down. Now, it must have been more than the charm that got you involved. I mean, what was it about this version, then, of the story that you really enjoyed reading?
Well, the thing about Clementine is I suddenly thought, well, who is the woman who's married to Winston Churchill? I want to know more about her. I want to know, what it's like waking up next to this man who's about to save the world and has to work really hard, and who is bad-tempered and gambles and is hilariously funny and wicked and has a great sense of humour. What's it like being married to him? And I wanted that to come across in the film. I wanted to see a sort of domestic side to their to this couple, and wives of important men are usually sort of shoved into the background. Well, working with Gary, I mean, it was so thrilling.
What is incredibly striking about it is it's obviously a film about war, but there's no war in it. It's all about the words and the relationship and the magic that goes on in there. And there's so many wonderful quotes in it. Obviously, it's Churchill, so they're all in there. But there's one in particular that kind of really sums it up, and it was sort of borrowed from JFK, I think. But he's mobilised the English language and he's sent it into battle. And this, really, Lily, is where your character comes in, because she's his secretary.
Yeah, she's his personal secretary, and so she's literally with him as he is creating these speeches and is pacing his room, and she's at her typewriter writing it down as it comes, as inspiration strikes. And all through the night, I mean, Churchill worked these ridiculous hours at 4:30 in the morning with trying to keep her eyes open. Goes to this great man as he was, like you said, saving, the future of our,
Yeah,
of our country.
and it's all coming from him. I mean, it's not like he's got a bunch of script writers there. It's literally just what he's saying.
Yeah.
And you're just going with it.
And I was really doing it. And it was so thrilling for me, and working with Gary and having it felt like Churchill pacing behind me, and I was hoping I wasn't going to, screw it up. It was.
But do you remember the first day when he came into rehearsal? We were all the cast sitting around a huge table, and Gary arrives in full Winston.
What, in the whole regalia?
And there was a sort of hush, because no one could quite believe that Winston Churchill had actually come back.
Uncanny.
It is uncanny, isn't it?
People stood up.
But he says, actually, that it was his toughest role because of all the prosthetics that he had to put in, that he had to put on every morning.
Yeah,
I think it took like 3 or 4 hours.
And then 2 hours to get it off.
Oh!
And the fact that he can still convey, through that sort of mask, such, honest, thoughts and expression is kind of...
But a Golden Globe nomination, so... very much worth it.
There's a huge amount of humour in it as well, which is a joy. Is that something that you expected when you initially started making this movie, that it would be actually so funny in parts?
Well, I knew that Churchill had this kind of very extravagant sense of humour that is funny, but I wasn't actually. When I watched it, I was surprised by how much it made me laugh. The sort of feel of it, especially at the start.
But then, in my part, when I read the part, I always looked for a little bit of humour, a little bit of wit, and there was so much warmth between the two of them, and they're teasing of each other.
And your character, Elizabeth Nell, wrote a book, summarising her experience of working with Churchill, and then she describes him as so: impatient, kind, irritable, which you said a bit of this, crushing, generous, inspiring, difficult, alarming, amusing, unpredictable, considerate, seemingly impossible to please, quick to anger and quick to forgive. Could you both work for a man like that?
I mean,
I'm not sure I have already done that. I think I would be married to a man like that. Can you imagine that?
Even worse.
But you know, to me, it's just so timely at the moment with everything that's going on and all the negotiations that are happening at the moment, and really just the amount of sacrifice that happened, and that I think needs to be taken note, really, for all those on the opposite side of the table, and the amount, you know, of sacrifice that was made for our European allies. But I don't know if you had a sense of that while you were making it, did you?
I think so, and I mean, while you're making it, I'm so like lost in the moments that I'm doing and investing in Elizabeth, and I loved her book. I was sort of lost in it. So, but you can't not be aware of the sort of greater impact of the story and how people might respond. But
well, people will be looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, I tell
when
you,
can we see
well,
it,
if you want to
Matthew?
see it, The Darkest Hour, then you have to wait until the 12th of January.
it's ages away.
It is well worth the wait.
Good, something to look forward to after Christmas.